I like how Ryan Condal was like, hey, you guys remember the wall? Remember better times, when the world was so simple and we had a 700-foot wall of ice protecting us. The North remembers. Just seeing Winterfell and hearing the Starks theme, that made me happy. I don't care if it was nostalgia bait, it sparks joy. And it was cool to see Cregan Stark. Honestly, just an incredible opening scene. It immediately made me think, ooh, this is going to be even better than Season 1. Now, don't get me wrong, I really liked Season 1. It was good, but it was a lot of setup for what's about to happen. And this season, it's all going down. We got blood and cheese, alright? It's the big event that everybody's been bracing themselves for. We've all been bracing for a huge emotional gut punch, and we got it. Now, it happened a little different than it did in, Fire and Blood and the history book of Westeros, and I've seen a bunch of people complaining already, and that's fine, but I saw somebody call this boring. Man, I was not bored. Now, I get things happen different in the books. Readers know that in the books, the kids were awake, and two sons were there. So while they're awake, she chooses which one is going to die, and then Blood and Cheese killed the opposite one. So the boy who lives knowing that his mom chose him to die, which just adds a whole other layer of messed up to the situation. And if they would have did that in the show, it probably would have been even more impactful. There's also the fact that the show kind of followed Blood and Cheese navigating their way up to Helena, and we didn't see it so much from the perspective of Helena. Because if we would have saw things from her perspective, maybe it would have been a little more terrifying, a little creepier. If the last 10 minutes of the episode was just Helena walking around and she hears a strange noise, and the maid comes across the rat catcher, who's not normally up there. And maybe Helena sees some rats, and then boom, the event happens. Maybe that would have had more impact. Not saying this was bad though. Honestly, I think the way they handled it was well executed and emotional. It still had impact. And of course, if you haven't read the books, you were probably totally surprised. This is absolutely a moment that is going to further escalate the war. I also like how we have this cool opening tapestry being put together, and it's just a recap of events from season 1, the history kind of building up. I think opening credits are an incredible place for exposition, like a little backstory here's the story so far, or a little something to make you remember what happened last season. I think that's a great use of opening credits. When we first see Daemon, the star of the show, along with Aemond, he's giving Rhaenys a hard time because she could have ended the war before it even started back in season 1, and he's absolutely right. Look, I get we're not supposed to like Daemon. He's a bad dude, he's done a lot of terrible and reckless things, but he's interesting. He makes things happen, and I watch this show for entertainment. That's why him and Aemond, who is basically just a younger version of Daemon, are my two favorite characters in the entire show. So then we have King Aegon. And you know what? Despite him trying his best to run away from being a king, he's trying his best. He might not be great at it, he might be new to it, but he's giving it a shot. He hasn't ran away yet. I like how him and the bros were holding court, and Otto Hightower kept giving him that look, like, we're not allowed to make people happy here. In season 2, it seems like it's Daemon and all of the sons, on both sides, all the princes, that are front and center right now. I mean, Rhaenyra had maybe one line in the first episode. Like, it was a good line. I want Aemond. Well, there was also that grieving scene, and that was powerful stuff. Myceria, aka the White Worm. Her accent is so much better this season. That was maybe the only negative, the only complaint from last season was just that whatever accent she was trying to do, and I get, as an actor, it's a made-up fantasy language, and then trying to come up with a fake accent, it's got to be tough, for sure. But it was really weird last season. This season, much better. Didn't even notice it until people pointed out, like, hey, the bad accent's gone. And I was like, oh, her parts came up, and I wasn't taken out of the moment. I was still very much in the moment. I'm glad it's gotten a lot better.